This is the Weekly You Demon.
We listen to every episode 5 times.
I want to recommend a writer, a guy named A.J. Jacobs. I don't know much about him. He's Jewish. He lives in New York. He worked, I believe, for Vanity Fair or Esquire. I forget which. And I think he's probably more of a lefty, but I think he's a real intellectually honest type of guy. So if he's on the left, he's one of the cool guys on the left. I would love to get together and talk with at some point. He could probably correct me on a lot of things. Maybe I could correct him. Who knows? But this seems like a great guy. I've read one of his books. It's called The Know-It-All: One Man's Humble Quest to Become the Smartest Person in the World. I'll probably talk about that later on. But he wrote a book I haven't read yet called Thanks 1,000. And this book is fascinating. It's all about giving thanks. And if you recall, that's one of the central themes of The Virgin Eye. That book I love so much and I recommended probably half dozen times. Robin Daniels, The Virgin Eye. Daniels points out in that book that giving thanks is a great way to expand your worldview. Praise, giving thanks, expands your worldview, lets you appreciate things more. It also lets you live in the present moment. As I've pointed out other times, it's really hard to live in the present moment, and all the spiritual masters, a lot of philosophers like Wittgenstein, they all said the same thing. Living in the present moment is the key to living, period. But as I've pointed out before, to me that's like saying, well, the key to winning is winning. Or run faster, to win the race. That's the advice, run faster. So I've never learned how to live in the present moment. But if you start giving thanks, you'll find yourself living in the present moment. And this A.J. Jacobs book is kind of like an exercise of giving thanks. Here's the whole premise of it. He loves his morning cup of coffee. And so he came up with the idea that he was going to personally thank every single person, or what I should say, a person in every single industry that contributes to his morning cup of coffee. So he was going to find a barista and thank her. He was going to find the owner of the store and thank her. And that all seems simple enough, but then it starts to get out of control. Because he has to start thinking through, who all do I have to contact to give thanks? So this had him thinking, I gotta thank the dude who grew the beans. Well, wait, I gotta thank the dude who picked the beans. I gotta thank the dude who provided the irrigation to grow the beans. I gotta thank the dude who made the pallets to pile the stacks of coffee beans on. I gotta thank the dude who made the ship to get the beans to the United States. I gotta thank, and it goes on and on and on. And it's a mind-blowing, mind-expanding experiment. I have not read it. I heard about it on Econ Talk with Russ Roberts. I listened to it, 6 months ago or whatever. Definitely a book I want to get. But so he goes through this, and again, it blows your mind or expands your mind in a couple ways. One, it just lets you see just how freaking much effort goes into making a single cup of coffee. And as an Austrian economist, someone who believes in the free market, you realize that crap can never be centrally planned. If you're going to try to plan that, as Hayek wrote in Road to Serfdom, you're going to have to focus just on making coffee. That's why communist countries, they can focus on one thing to the detriment and neglect of all other things, and they can focus all energy just on that. That's what centrally planned economies can do pretty well. So if the communists said, we are just going to make a great cup of coffee, they could probably pull that off. Meanwhile, no one has any underwear to wear, but they got that great cup of coffee. On the free market, though, we do everything great. Every product we can make absolutely great. And then, on top of that, you have the whole spiritual or the moral outlook of giving thanks and how important that is. And A.J. Jacobs gets into that as well. So if you want to read a book, you may want to check out this Thanks 1,000. It's going to be on my short list of things to get to. Probably make a good vacation reading book. Call me Boris. Call me Boris Yeltsin, the first president of Russia after the USSR failed. I guess he was in a Houston grocery store. Maybe it was a big box store. I'm pretty sure it was a grocery store. And accounts say he got depressed. He was absolutely flabbergasted at the sheer variety of crap on the shelves. How much stuff there was to buy. Being purchased by people who obviously were not wealthy. Without having to stand in line for hours. And on top of that, it was all attractively packaged. So not only did you have 8 breads to choose from, each bread was in colorful, good-looking packages, making you want to buy it. And I guess Boris Yeltsin came out of that and said, wow, communism is just whacked. We need to figure out how to make this work. I'm kind of like Boris Yeltsin. You know, when I was younger, I hated going to the store. I'm not talking young, I'm talking like age 20, 25, 30. And maybe because back then I was poor and couldn't afford this crap. I mean, I could buy bread. I was never that poor. I wasn't in poverty by any means, but when, as a young family, as a young lawyer in a small town, money certainly wasn't plentiful to say the least. Maybe I was somewhat unwittingly resentful or whatever. I don't think I was, but maybe I was. You know, the type of envy. By the way, I heard a great prayer the other day. It said something like, Lord, free me from my unknown sins. And I think that might be the most penetrating thing I've heard in a while. You know, you have so many weaknesses and sins, you don't even know what they are. So you can't even begin to address them. And this Catholic priest was saying, just pray, you know, God, free me from my unknown sins. You know, this old Socratic notion, know thyself, and if you don't know thyself, you can't improve thyself. But anyway, so maybe I was resentful, I don't know, but I hated going to the store. And at least in my mind, I hated the crowds. I hated having to walk all the frick over the place to find something. I remember one time my wife and sister-in-law sent her husband and I to the store. We got to Houghton Lake. And they sent us to Walmart to buy stuff because we were the first ones of the family to arrive for this week-long vacation. And then they proceeded to text us one freaking thing after another to buy. We spent an hour and a half in the freaking Walmart. It may be more than an hour and a half. I'm just like, gosh, I hate going to Walmart. Well, it kind of changed. I don't like going to Walmart still because the people there just bum me out. But I like going to Meijer. And I kind of feel like Boris when I go into Meijer. It's like, gosh, the freaking variety just, it makes me happy. I don't even buy that much stuff when I go in there. Yeah, I especially feel that way when I'm in the booze section. Looking at all the different types of beer and wine. I feel like I'm in a toy store. But not just the booze, but all the areas. It just blows me away. I walk through that and I'm just blown away by the sheer, you know, the cornucopia. You know, the abundance. It just really captivates me. Now, that's partly because, well, one, it really is amazing. You know, just giving thanks and looking at wonder at things is a great way to expand your worldview. But it's not just that. It's also, I'm blessed that I don't have to go there very often. Marie has to go to Meijer. She has to go to Walmart. She has to go to Kroger. I would think that would do quite a bit to take the shine off this experience if you had to go. And then if you had to go once, twice, 3, 4 times a week, that'd be even worse. I remember one year, I can't remember what it was, but I had to go to Walmart to do some Christmas shopping for Marie. I had to buy her presents. I guess the Dollar Tree ran out of stuff for me to buy for her. And it dawned on me, it's like December 12th, I forget what it was. And it dawned on me, I hadn't been in a store all year. That was cool as hell. To realize I hadn't stepped foot in at least in a big store. I'm sure, you know, I'm sure I went to a liquor store or two. And I'm sure I went to these small, you know, a Shell Mart or whatever. But I hadn't been in a big store, I don't think, the entire year. Boy, what a blessing that is. So I think part of my experience, my Boris type experiences, like Boris, I don't get to the store very often. So when I do get there, I'm just absolutely blown away. Yeah, so A.J. Jacobs, the know-it-all, one man's humble quest to become the smartest person in the world. This is all about him sitting down and reading all 32 massive volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica. And then he writes about it A to Z. Very autobiographical. Pretty funny. In this book, he goes through A, B, C, D, and just writes about different things he found under those letters. So under the D's, Jacobs writes about Descartes. He had a fetish for women with crossed eyes. And Jacob muses it must have been tough. He goes, if it was in today's world, he could probably find a plastic wrap magazine, cross-eyed vixens, and maybe go to hotcrosseyes.com, but back then, probably hard to find cross-eyed women. Under the B's, he mentions bobsledding, and said it came from the mistaken belief that the sledders could increase speed by bobbing their heads back and forth. I harp on the importance of being thankful, and it's not just a religious thing, it's just a mindfulness principle just in general. And I always like when I stumble across something that I realize I've been thankful for my entire life, or at least my entire adult life, but I never really realized it. One of those things is the 6-ounce glass. I love small things.
We know I like small things, Chusky.
I realize as a local honky-tonk bar, one of my favorite bars to go to, and they always bring you a long neck, no draft beer, and a 6-ounce glass to pour it into. There's something about just drinking out of a small glass I really, really enjoy. I love Mountain Dew. And for a guy trying to keep his weight down, that's a horrible thing to like. But the 6-ounce glass is like, hey, I have half a Mountain Dew, 85 calories, a little bit of buzz that goes with it. Perfect. Hey, and as long as I touched on mindfulness, I want to bring out another mindfulness principle that I heard on those mindfulness tapes I've been listening to, or I was listening to a couple months ago. The commentator mentioned that mindfulness can start whenever you want, right here and right now. Which, I love it when I find these this mindfulness teacher. She's not religious at all. She's like the Buddhist secular tradition, but it parallels perfectly with Mother Teresa's observation, quote, because of God's goodness and love, every moment of our life can be the beginning of great things, unquote. Robin Daniels also points out a similar thing in The Virgin Eye. He says something to the effect that since God has an infinite number of modes of expression, our contact with Him can start whenever we want. Booze boarding. The practice of extracting secrets from a person by pouring copious amounts of booze down his throat. Wizard brain. An autonomous state of blackout that not only gets you home at night, but also achieves other objectives, such as a new girlfriend, a job, and a lighter collection. The gangover. Going to breakfast or lunch with the guys you got drunk with the night before. Those are all courtesy of Modern Drunkard magazine. I know I've said before, but if you like to drink, and you like to read, and you like humor, you gotta get Modern Drunkard magazine, or at least go on their website. Frank Rich is the writer, the editor. I think he's pretty much a one-man show, although they clearly have other contributors as well. You can see in the writing style, at least to my eye, their writing style seems a little bit different. Now there's different bylines as well, and I guess Frank Rich could be, writing under different names, but I don't think he is, because he puts a lot of those stories under his own name. But again, just some of the funniest freaking stuff ever. There's also a Modern Drunkard book if you can get on Amazon, probably $5 could you use. Highly recommended. I did subscribe, by the way. Ray got me a subscription for my birthday one year, but I don't think I ever got all the issues. Ray thinks I may have. I just don't think I ever did. So take that for what it's worth. If you subscribe, you may want to watch it carefully, because it comes out irregularly. I'm pretty sure. I think it comes out something like 5 times a year, or maybe 6, whatever. You go to the website, you can figure it out. I have always, by the way, liked the gangover. I mentioned that when I talk about introversion, Matt Walsh is saying that the introvert only has a finite amount of interaction units available every day. Once those are gone, interaction has completely drains them, and therefore the introvert doesn't want to waste it on superficial type things like talking about the weather or whatever. And I mentioned before how that just really, really resonated with me. But I find certain things, certain forms of interaction don't drain me. So, being with my kids, adult kids, younger kids, doesn't matter. That doesn't drain me. Nah, I suppose my daughters can drain me. They're going through some of their things, No, typically speaking, being with my kids doesn't drain me. Being with my wife certainly doesn't drain me. Well, normally. I don't know why that is. Talking with my law partners at the law firm, if it's business related, whatever, that doesn't really seem to drain me for some reason. And the gangover has never drained me. And probably because I'm just drained anyway. I'm hungover, they're hungover, we're just kind of sitting back and hanging out and watching ESPN Sports Center and shooting the bull. The poor suck. Yeah, I hate to say it, and I know, the gospel injunction's pretty cotton picking clear that whatever you do to the least of these, you did for me. So it's scary to say it, the poor suck, but I've just had it with the idea that, we have to help poor people when they turn out to be complete freaking jack-offs. Like the woman I bought lunch for last year at a downtown Detroit eatery, and then she proceeded to call my daughter, who's the sweetest girl I know, a bitch, and flipped her off and all sorts of other things. And yeah, she's probably mentally whacked, but it seems to me you can be mentally whacked without being a complete, bitch. So I don't want to take her off the hook for that reason. Maybe I should. We can discuss it later. And my son tells me the other day he took a guy out for lunch, some homeless person, and the guy started arguing with him because Michael wasn't buying him enough food, and just being a real jack-off about it. There's a famous quote by Dorothy Day, who always cared for the poor, and who commented in her diaries often crapped on her for it. Her saying is something to the effect that one thing you have to realize about the poor is that they're smelly and ungrateful. Something like that. But she did it anyway, and Dorothy Day may have been a saint. And so I'm fully cognizant of that. And it makes me uncomfortable to say things like the poor suck. And I did that as an attention getter. I really don't believe that myself. But I do believe this. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you don't have moral agency. It's like that midget wrestling episode I did. I said I object to people saying I shouldn't go to this because it demeans the little people. Hey, the midgets want to do it. The midgets are having fun. The midgets are making money. Who are you to tell them they should make money that way? Because they're so little, they can't think for themselves? They have no moral agency? I feel that way about the poor as well. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you get to be a jack-off all the time. It doesn't mean you're not a jerk. It doesn't mean I have to keep helping you just because you're poor when you're just mean as hell. And say, well, you just gotta help them anyway, because they're poor. It's like, I get it, and part of me wants to agree with you, but geez, so Pete's, just because you're poor doesn't give you the right to go around giving everyone in the world the middle finger. And I feel quite frankly about mental illness the same way. I don't know why people with mental illnesses tend to be such jerk-offs. I mean, why can't someone have a mental illness where all they want to do is come wash my car or cut my lawn? Why do the people with mental illness, why does it always have to take this selfish turn? I mean, 9 times out of 10 people with mental illness are just mean and self-centered, and I don't understand why it has to be that way. If you generally just have mental illness, why can't that mental illness take a turn in a kindly direction? And I've heard of instances where it does. So I gotta be careful there, but I think that's one problem I have with mental illness is I don't understand enough about it. I don't appreciate or understand why it always has to take this nasty self-centered turn that makes you a complete pain in the ass for the people. Again, it'd be kind of a pain in the ass for me if someone kept coming to wash my car every day when I didn't necessarily want it washed. So I mean, even a kindly type mental illness could be a real hassle. But so anyway, when it comes to poor, I'll keep working it through my own head. And by the way, there are poor out there who are very grateful. A year or so ago, there's some guy walking around downtown in my small town, and I don't know, he looked just miserable. I didn't know what it was about him. And I said, buddy, you doing okay? And he goes, nah. He goes, it's, basically, he didn't say, I don't want to talk about it, but that was a clear import. It's just like, no, he just really bummed out. And I said, do you need any money? He goes, yeah, actually I do. And I said, here's $20. And the guy hugged me. I was kind of bummed out he hugged me because I was thinking, oh my gosh, this guy probably has lice. But he was very grateful. So again, I don't want to say that you don't help any of the poor. I just had a hard time dealing with, helping these ingrate, just SOB poor people. You know what's bizarre from a legal principle standpoint? It's the free pass we give dog owners. So I'm walking out of church 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I had it was a Saturday night, it was dark out, and I had some really heavy stuff in my mind. Can't go into details here, but I'm just kind of lost in thought, and I'm walking down the sidewalk, and there was this little yippy puff dog. Didn't see her, whatever. Right next to the sidewalk. Apparently the owner gave it a leash just long enough to get to the edge of the sidewalk. And this thing started barking at me. Scared the living hell out of me. I mean, I jumped. I unleashed, you effing S-H-I-T. I mean, I screamed it to make sure the owner could hear me because I was just hot. Setting a real good example for, just coming out of church. But that's probably the most startled I've probably been in 10 years. But, if I was doing that to people, walking through my neighborhood and I jump out of the bushes at them, the cops would come and say, hey, knock it off. At a minimum, that's a civil assault. And at some level, if you put someone in apprehension of, danger to themselves, it would rise to the level of a criminal assault. Now, I'll defer to the criminal lawyers in my firm to correct me on that, but I think at some point you start walking up to people and scaring them and wow, doing the karate chops in their face. At some point, it's like, no, you're going to go to jail. You have to stop doing that. But yet we give the dogs a free pass. Now, I don't want to go back to that Saturday Night Live commercial where those lawyers are saying, we want to sue the dogs. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I don't understand why the dog owners aren't held liable for the actions of the dogs. The dog's walking up and humping someone's leg. Why isn't that an assault? Or a dog scaring the hell out of people and a dog biting someone. Why do we have this one bite rule? That's like the American rule you learn in law school. Until the owner has noticed that their dog is dangerous, they really can't be held liable for the dog's actions. Really? Why? You had the frickin' dog. In my opinion, it ought to be strict liability. Strict liability in American law says you built a dynamite factory in a residential neighborhood. If there's an explosion that kills people, you're on the hook. And we don't care if your facility complied with every federal safety standard and you're the utmost and careful. You are strictly liable if something goes wrong. As far as I'm concerned, it should be that way with the dog. If something goes wrong with the dog, if the dog does something, you're strictly liable for it. What I mean by that is, if you did it and would have gone to jail for doing it, if your dog does it, you ought to go to jail for your dog doing it. That's all I'm saying. Now, I get why we don't. You can make this argument with other things, like driving a car. You can say, geez, so frickin' Pete, you're taking a ton of metal. You're going down the freeway at 70 miles an hour. You slam into something, you're strictly liable. We don't care how careful you're being. That's a very dangerous activity you're doing. And that would be a good argument to make. But we as a society have decided that no. We need to preserve mobility, and everyone drives cars, and we don't want to impose strict liability on the owners. People love having dogs, so we as a society have made up our minds that no, it's a little doggy woggy. If they do something, we really shouldn't hold the owners liable unless the owners had notice, etc., etc. I think it's an outrage. I get it. And that's just the way our society has evolved. And among, people who don't like dogs, of which I'm definitely in that camp, not a dog person. I like dead dogs, by the way. I be careful there. It's not all dogs I dislike, it's just those that are living. But, I get it. As a society, we basically made a decision, no. We don't want to lock up or fine dog owners for every little thing the dogs do wrong because dogs are so important to us as a culture. Again, I don't get it. And I realize I'm not going to win this debate anytime soon. Freaking A, it's like dogs are just proliferating in this country. And we know why. As people have fewer and fewer kids, they have more and more dogs. And they treat those dogs like they're freaking kids. Which is nothing that really bugs me. One of the best responses I ever heard to that whole thing about dogs as children, this woman said she was at a park and her kids were playing, and this woman came down and she had their 2 little doggy woggies with her, and this woman proceeded to tell this young mother how she thinks her dogs as her kids, just like she thinks of her kids as her kids, so to speak. And the young mother said, "You don't look at your dogs the way I look at my children." And this woman was kind of outraged. She was like, "You can't tell me what I think, that I do view my dogs the same way as you view your children." And the young mother said, "No, you don't, because if my kids were starving, I would kill your dogs to feed it to them." The woman in the park bench in response to that. Okay, that's a wrap for the week. Go check out the Facebook page, subscribe to the Twitter feed, tell your friends and family. Go to Demon Podcast for show notes and other information. As always, thanks for listening.